Brighter Media Group original.
It's the Versed Podcast. Welcome in. My name is John. On a daily pursuit to become more perceptive to what the Bible says. And today, reading from the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. Let's do it. Man, you feel the burnout today? You feel like you're running on empty, maybe? We're going through a global pandemic. I think we're all kind of running on empty, right? I don't know. Maybe you feel guilty for not working harder or doing enough. I felt that way before. Today's verses are actually a reminder for us that rest from all of that is not earned by us. It's not something we have to achieve. It's not something we have to strive to enter into. It's already been won. It's been freely given by God. So what are we going to do with it? We're going to dive into that a little bit. So before we read the verses from Hebrews, let's actually set up some historical and biblical context. We've spent a decent amount of time so far in the life of this podcast in Hebrews, so I don't want to restate too much, but I also know that new listeners are coming in all the time. This might be your first encounter with Hebrews, so I don't want to leave you empty-handed, so to speak. I will say, though, it's a bit odd that I've spent a large amount of time in Hebrews because it's often considered one of the most difficult books in the New Testament to interpret, because it's very dependent on the Old Testament for what the author has to say to the Jewish Christians he was writing to. These were Christians who were considering bailing on Christianity altogether because of the persecution they were under. Hebrews essentially is this keep going and don't quit book. Jesus is worth the struggle. The passage we read to today is in reference to the Jewish people who hardened their hearts against Jesus. I guess why I find myself returning back to Hebrews so much, I think about it, is that it pumps me up, to be honest with you. It energizes my faith when I feel down. I hope it does the same for you as well. So let's read Hebrews chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. So there is a special rest still waiting for the people of God, for all who have entered into God's rest and have rested from their labors, just as God did after creating the world. Think about rest. True rest. Maybe that seems even unattainable or like something we're trying to get to all the time. But think about God's rest, though, and our relationship to it. You remember how God, after the creation of the world, rested, and he enjoyed the completion of his work on the seventh day? He also established a special day of rest, or Sabbath, that you may have heard it said that way, for Israel in the Ten Commandments. He established that with his people. It was a day where they were to enjoy the fruits of their labor. It was a physical day of rest from labor. It was created for our well-being. But just like everything in the Old Testament, it also points to a fulfillment that would come through Jesus. Jesus finished a work as well. He completed the labor he came to do, his purpose. He died on the cross, and when he was on the cross, he called out, "It is finished." The work was done. He won the ultimate rest in paradise for those who call him Lord of their life and believe in him. We're called to physically rest by God, and through Jesus, we're freed from restless striving. We're commanded to take physical rest, and we're given spiritual rest. And both were completed in God's perfect plan for us for salvation through Jesus. We don't need to work harder. We don't need to strive more. Our good works don't earn our rest in heaven. It's already been purchased. how can we strive to enter God's rest? By faith alone, in Jesus alone. A faith that will lead us to love Him. A faith that will lead us to obedience. Out of gratitude for all that He has done for us. If you need some real rest today, know that you're commanded to take it physically, and that your eternal restless striving in this life and living on this earth has already been bought and paid for by Jesus, and you can rest in knowing that as well. What a beautiful thing. Let's reflect on that today. That's a good reflection. Maybe even take this minute or so and actually sit with resting. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is your nudge to take the rest. Let's do that for a minute, and then we'll talk about some things when we come back on the other side. So there's a bit of a reason why this was the topic of the podcast today, because this podcast was recorded at the time that I'm actually in Jamaica. I'm in Jamaica, friends. I am obeying God's commandment to rest in the tropical paradise. And I want to stay here forever. I just want to come on and briefly say that I'm grateful for this community that's building, the Versed listeners. I'm so glad that you are investing, just like I am, into becoming more aware of what the Bible says. I've been a Christian most of my life, and I have not read all of the Bible. I don't understand all the Bible, but enough is enough, right? I need to know it. You know, our world is not getting, any easier to be a Christian in or be a parent in. There's nothing new under the sun and new in history, but still, we need to develop a certain level of emotional guts and fortitude to be able to handle things. And when our circumstances and our lives are falling apart, do we have the foundation built to get through it? Can we sit back and rely on God? That's what we're doing through this podcast, is we are building and developing that strong foundation by reading and understanding and hearing from God through His Word. So it's a good thing. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you to those of you who have left a rating, and more specifically, a review on the podcast as well, for creating context for other people and for just showing love. I appreciate that so much. If you want resources, if you want to submit a verse for a future episode, if you have questions about the Bible or a verse you want to even dive deeper on, those are in the works right now. I'm planning those, so make sure you get in and check out the show notes for the link to all of those things. I will see you guys. Well, I guess I don't see you. I hope to see you guys at some point, but you will hear from me tomorrow. Make sure you make hope louder today, and we'll talk soon.